this is a case. One of the great things about the Switch is its adaptability, whether you want to use it on a TV or handheld. But if I'm being honest, personally, I pretty much use it in handheld mode all the time. So a big problem I run into that needs to be fixed is the grip. Because while it's a great little system with some awesome games, it doesn't have the most comfortable design when you're using it in handheld mode. So we're gonna go over a bunch of different grip options that are out there and which one is right for you. First, we're gonna talk about a case that I have shown on this channel before, and that's the Skull & Co grip case. Now, this is by no means an expensive accessory for the Switch, but when it comes to grip cases, it is a little bit more on the pricey side. But honestly, I think you get what you pay for. Now, this is a case design that encompasses the entire Switch's body, so it keeps it nice and compact together. It adds a little bit of protection, but that's not really the goal of the case. It's much more about giving you the most comfortable grip possible. And one of the ways it achieves that is that these little grips right here are actually detachable, and there's two different sizes you can use. So depending on the size of your hand or just what kind of grip you personally find more comfortable, you actually have a little options as to which one you want to use. And you can actually buy them separately as well, in case, for instance, you get like this right here with the blue and red, and decide later, I'd rather get something that matches like the Splatoon controllers. You also have the option to buy a special case that'll pair with this, which does cost a little more money, but one of the upsides of that is that while this adds a little bulk to the Switch, so it won't fit in more traditional cases, that's going to give you a way to fit the Switch, the grip, and anything else you need to carry like games or some smaller accessories. Really, my only major complaint with this case is that because of its full body design, it covers up a lot of the buttons on the top of the Switch, and some of them work fine, like the L and the triggers, but other ones like the power and volume buttons, they don't really feel like you're actually hitting a button. They do work, it just doesn't feel quite right. Next up is the Mio protective case. Now, this is another one that's in the very similar style as the Skull & Co, but one of the biggest differences is it's half the cost. So it's a lot cheaper, and it's still a solid, comfortable, good case. The main areas where you really start to lose out a little bit compared to the Skull & Co is that it doesn't have changeable grips. Well, they are changeable, but it's just other colors. They don't have different sizings or shapes like the Skull & Co does. So if this main basic grip doesn't work for you, you don't have a lot of options. But one of the things that is really cool about this one is that the little grip storage areas here pop off a lot easier, and can actually be used to store game carts as well. So this gives you a way to carry around 2 additional Switch games inside of your Switch all at one time, which is really convenient. Like the Skull & Co though, this one does still run into some of the same problems where it's an all-encompassing case design. It does allow you to use the shoulder buttons perfectly fine, but it does once again cover up the power and volume switches, which just don't feel comfortable. Now, along the same lines, another case that is on the cheaper side and also still is a full body case is this one from G-Tech. Now, an important distinction with this one is that this isn't really designed to be a comfort grip first and foremost. Instead, it's actually meant to be a protective case, which the main way it accomplishes this is the plastic here is a little softer, so it's actually able to absorb the impact instead of just carry it through, and it is a little thicker compared to the other ones. It does give you a comfort grip still in the form of these kind of little lumps here, but it's not changeable, it's not any kind of different designs, it's just a slightly better grip than normal. Now, something I do really appreciate about this case though is that while the grips aren't quite as good as the other ones we've talked about so far, this is the only full body case on this list that actually gives you the ability to still use the kickstand on your Switch, at least if your kickstand isn't broken, and it doesn't cover up any of the top parts button-wise for the Switch. So you still have access to the volume buttons, the power buttons, shoulder buttons. None of them are covered by different things. You just use them straight up, so it feels a lot more natural. Changing gears a little bit, now let's look at some cases that are not really, well, cases. They're more focused on just adding the grip design and not really covering the entire Switch. So something like this one from Satisfy is focused much more on just adding that more comfortable grip without adding any extra weight or bulk to the system. This is not about protection, it's just about comfort. And one of the things that's really interesting about the Satisfy grip in particular is that it's a little bit of a different design from most Switch grips. Oftentimes the handles are symmetrical. In this case, the right grip is actually angled out a little more, and the reason being is it actually makes the grip more comfortable, specifically in situations where you're going to be using both sticks very often. By angling your hand out a little more, you're going to rest your thumb much more naturally on the right thumbstick, so it's going to be a lot more comfortable for long-term gameplay. I will say, though, that in situations where you're not really using the right thumbstick, for instance, say a 2D platformer and you just want to use the buttons in the left stick, I prefer the other grip design more. So depending on what kind of games you're really into, this can either be a big upgrade or just fine. Either way, it's still a comfortable grip. And like the Skull & Co one I mentioned earlier, you can buy an optional case alongside this one, which will fit the grip, the Switch, and any additional stuff you want to carry along with you as well. And then this brings us to the Go Play grip for the Switch. Now, just like with the Satisfy one, this is one that's focused on being much more of just a lightweight add-on. In fact, this one is especially bare bones. It doesn't really add that much weight to the Switch at all, other than, of course, giving you these little grips. One of the really kind of interesting things about it, too, that the company pushes is the fact that you can actually use this as its own kind of stand. It'll sit on a desk fine without using the kickstand at all, but it still leaves the kickstand open if you'd rather use that angle as well. Another thing that also sets this one apart from all the other grips we've talked about is that for the most part, all the grips have kind of just a flush back design, but with this one, you can see kind of a little divot right here for your fingers to rest into. It gives a little bit of a different grip feel, and honestly, I actually find it to be really comfortable. I think alongside the Skull & Co, this is one of the more comfortable grips I've used. Now, the sort of upside downside to this one, depending on your needs, is that this is actually part of a forced bundle where it's not like an optional add-on to get a case for it. You actually have to get the case, thumbstick grips, and this grip all in one package. It's a good price for what you're getting, but if all you want is just the grip, you're spending a little more money than normal. Now, all these cases are great for a variety of reasons. They each have their strengths depending on what exactly you're looking for or how much you're willing to pay, but if you're wondering what my personal favorite is, I'm gonna have to give it to the Skull & Co design. I really like the grips on it. I like the case you can get alongside it. I think it's a really well-made case that's not only going to be comfortable, but also protect your Switch a little bit. It's just my personal favorite. You are spending a little more, but I think it's absolutely worth it.